Hey folks, Lemonade here, and today we got a 2-for-1 featuring the Spyre Kamek and the Spyre Loque mousepads all the way from Australia. But let's see if the hype, their warranty, and performance are worth it right after this. So just a small disclaimer, folks, Spyre did send me these mouse pads for free, but that will never change the outcome of any review on this channel. My opinions are my own, and you are seeing this as early as Spyre is. Also, if you do decide you like this video at some point, don't forget to like and sub down below. It does really help the channel out a lot. Thanks. Okay, per usual, we're going to knock the specs out first, and I'll throw those up on the screen for you here. But let's get this out of the way first. You cannot buy the Spyre Kamek anymore. I'm not sure if Spyre is going to stock this again, but it has been that way for a few months, it seems. And obviously, they have some in their warehouse to send me some, which it seems those are maybe leftovers used for warranty claims, and more on that a little bit later. So in terms of design and colors, you get one choice for each. Luckily, Spyre went with something unique over the standard plain black we see on so many pads. And I have to say that both these colors are fairly unique in the world of performance pads. The Kamek comes in this nice steel gray color, while the Loque, they opted in for this gorgeous Aegean blue, something that you don't see too often. I really think that if you're going to make a new mousepad company in 2023, you need to have some designs and colors. If you're releasing black pads, it's just really hard for anyone to get excited about that. So good job, Spyre. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Kamek real quick. We're going to knock it out. You can still find this on various like third-party sites for sale, so it does at least warrant me covering it a little bit. The performance on X and Y is fairly uniform in my testing. Humidity resistance is actually pretty decent. Nothing crazy unusual there. The base itself, they did opt in for this rubber, but with this unique pattern that I haven't seen before. That said, though, it doesn't really help. It's definitely one of the more slidey pads in my collection. It can easily shift throughout the day. Obviously, when I'm pushing on it, it kind of shifts a little bit, as you can see. But even just like small movements, it's just very easy to kind of like move. It doesn't feel really locked in compared to other pads. The stitching is stated as below the surface, but honestly, it's pretty close to right on level with it. But more importantly, the stitching is quite awful on this pad. You'll see it in a lot of other reviews, and the fact it really still stands here. Now, does that affect you in game? No. You can see like the waviness over here, bad kind of stitching here in the fraying, and just the unevenness all around the pad. Anyway, again, in game it doesn't really affect you, but the unevenness of that stitching coupled with the less than stellar rubber base just make it feel particularly cheap. And again, I have about 30 pads in my collection, and this one stands out, and not in a good way, at least from a fit and finish aspect. Now, this is a fairly centered pad, and its glide characteristics, it does lean to being a little bit more control focused. So how does that really boil down for our skate glide test? I'm going to throw up the rankings here so you can take a look depending on what you have. Now, when testing the pad, I did want to find something that was at least similar in performance and feel, and I kind of settled on the Lethal Gaming Gear Saturn, the original, and the X10 control pad here. Okay, so on to the Kamek and its performance and the surface itself. It has a standard kind of cloth feeling surface, but with a bit more texture to the surface itself. The unique element of this pad really comes down to the foam core that they decided to use. It's really quite soft and pliable. You can even see kind of just like poking through the bottom. It's very easy to indent it. Sometimes you may, if you find one and you pick one up, you may get it kind of indented a little bit. Mine was, it had a crease. The foam does bounce back fairly quickly, so if you see that, don't worry. But again, the foam itself is just very soft in that respect. I would say somewhere in between an Artisan Soft and X Soft. It just doesn't bounce back quite as fast as Pour-On does. Now, because of this, you get some nice variability in stopping power depending on how much you press into the pad. That's very helpful for those wider and fast flick shots. That said, for me personally, I prefer a more consistent pad and one that leans on the speed side of things. That's particularly helpful for fingertip grip and high sensitivity play. The extra squish here does kind of hinder me performing with this pad. That all said, if you like the sound of this but can't find the Kamek for sale, I'm going to nudge you in the way of these two pads. The standard Saturn here is more firm than the Kamek, but closer to its price point. I'll also add the Saturn has much better stitching and a better base. It comes in several different size options and now even a red color. If you're seeking that squish factor that the Kamek has, then you would want to step up at least to the Saturn Pro, and at that point it's just far better really in every way than the Kamek. On the higher end of the spectrum, the X10 Control has a more direct one-to-one comparison in the surface feeling and that kind of texture of it, but its base is more firm. And again, to me, that just provides better consistency overall. It's still a soft touch and soft core, but again, firmer than the Kamek. The X10 has also had a recent price drop, so it makes it an even better option than when I last recommended it. That said, it's still about 80 bucks. Overall, the Kamek is a cool pad, but with no availability and performance replicated elsewhere, it's just really hard to recommend, especially considering its flaws. Okay, now onto the Loque. Now this one is pretty special. Excuse how it looks here on my desk and doesn't sit flat just because of how I have my desk set up. In terms of X and Y performance, this is a little bit tighter and more uniform than the Kamek. Humidity resistance is also very good on this. Base is a more standard rubber feeling base with a more standard pattern on it, which to me is a good thing. It just performs much better in feeling consistent and staying in place over the Kamek, even with its edges raised on the corners, as you can see. Now, they did send me the non-stitch version, which I actually prefer, but from what I've seen online, the stitched version looks far, far better than the Kamek. Overall, that's a good sign to see that Spyre is improving in those two areas of stitching and the base. So the non-stitch edge is actually pretty good, but there are a few spots where you can see this kind of white threading, like right around this area showing itself. After examining the pad, it looks like it's just a white fabric when they dyed it blue around the logo area. Now, in terms of its glide characteristics, it does lean on being on the faster side of things, especially compared to the Kamek. So we're gonna show you the glide rankings like we normally do right here. So for the surface itself, they did label this as a Cordura surface, but it's not really like any other Cordura that at least I've seen and tested. So the one Cordura pad that I have in my office is the Cooler Master MP511, and this is significantly faster than the Loque. The Loque here honestly feels fairly balanced when I'm comparing it to this. It does lean obviously to the speed side of the spectrum. Its thin 3mm profile and just lower friction material does give it speed, but the weave that they chose for this specifically is what kind of gives it a little bit of stickiness when needed. Also, that weave is textured, but not in the traditional hybrid sense. It's more of a soft textured surface. It's almost like a soft micro bumps across the surface that you can feel very subtly. It's quite a joy to swipe across. I mean, for example, the MP511 is technically smoother, but it just has a more abrasive feeling and overall texture. It even sounds louder, like a sports coat almost. Take a listen between the two. Anyway, the Loque for me is just a hard recommend. It's unique enough in my collection from its material choice, the weave that they chose, overall fit and finish of the product, color choice, and its price point. If you're looking for a durable pad, the Cordura in this provides that, and it's versatile enough to be used in TAC FPS and arcade/tracking heavy shooters. So with the pads out of the way, let's talk briefly about Spyre as a company. So me personally, I always like when I see companies having a bit more depth than just being a product. It reveals their human side a little bit to us. And when it comes to small new players in the space, I'm more likely to support one with these kind of elements. First off, they seem to be heavily invested in arena FPS with sponsorships for several different teams and tournaments in Quake, Diabotical, Unreal, and separately, even League of Legends. On the other end of things, they have a pretty thoughtful blog with articles to help with improving aim, working out, mindset, and more. And after reading a few of them, there's definitely some nice material there. And lastly, they have a lore section with the origins of the naming of their pads and also something called the Tablets of Spyre, a series of poems and messages about life. Anyway, I'll leave you those to check out yourself. Overall, I like the creativity and the clear passion they have for their brand and care for their customers, which does tie me into my last point about Spyre, their famous 10-year replacement warranty. Yes, both of these pads are offered with a 10-year warranty. Pretty crazy, and beyond sending them like half a pad or a burn pad or something weirdly crazy, the warranty pretty much covers most general applications like wear and tear and fraying and things like that. You just have to pay for shipping. Now, I love this whole idea, but I'm not sure it's a very hype thing when we take a closer look at it. First off, the return shipping is not the same as the subsidized shipping we have to pay when we purchase a pad. So for example, in the US, it's about $15 to ship here, subsidized, so it may cost me, who knows, $20 or $30 if I want to submit a warranty claim in the future, which is almost the price of a new pad. Also, we aren't sure how long Spyre will be around. They're a brand new company, I believe, established in 2021, and while I hope they last, 10 years is a long stretch. Will they manage stock effectively to cover these pads for that long? I mean, the Kamek, for example, is no longer being made. I think there was issues with their manufacturer, and that's just one example. Anyway, it's a nice show of trust from them, but I wouldn't put a lot of weight into it as a major selling point. Okay, so let's wrap this up. All in all, I'm happy Spyre sent me these. They are both fairly unique, and these days it's becoming harder to get me excited about a mouse pad with so many good options as I've grown my collection. Spyre has managed to create two fairly unique offerings here while nurturing a very interesting brand image. Great job. And on that note, all my socials are down below with any affiliate links and discount codes. If you had a good time with me, likes and subs are always appreciated. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts were. But until the next Fresh Squeeze video, stay thirsty, folks.